Welcome to a tutorial on how to make a hanging planter just using hand building techniques. Let's take a look at our hanging planter we have here. This is a small model of what you'll be making. The construction is using a pinch pot technique and then adding decorative textures to the outside as well as underglazes. You'll have the option to have your piece glazed in a clear glaze or a colored glaze later on, and we'll discuss that, how to apply color and glaze in a different video. So let's get started. I have my clay out of my bag and I have my slab mat on my table. And the first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to start to move this clay and I'm just going to get it into a ball-shaped form. What we're going to do is we're going to start to pinch this pot open. The idea is that we're going to drive our thumb down to the bottom of the clay area. We're going to work the depth of the clay down here, and then we're going to work our way from the bottom out along the sides to the top of the pot. Okay? And that way our hands can keep working the entire time. Something to think about while we're pinch potting is the depth of your clay, the thickness of your walls. So if you put your finger on your pinky finger, you never want your walls to go thinner than that. That's about as thin as you want your walls. So if you think about what you're feeling thickness-wise, that's what you want to feel when you're working with your clay. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put my finger, drive my thumb all the way down to the bottom of the clay. At this point, we have a hollow vessel here. And you can see that my thumb drove all the way down the bottom, and if I feel the depth between my outside hand and my inside hand, I'm shooting for that thickness of my pinky finger. Okay. So in order to make this pot, and I'm gonna go for a similar shape, kind of a nice widened cylindrical shape with a rounded bottom. In order to get that shape, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to start working with the clay down here and then going forward up along the edge. If I, let's see, do I have any extra clay here? So I'll show you two different pinch techniques. If I just take a piece of clay and I pinch it and I just squish it, it's going to go out in every direction. That's not really what I want. What I want is to pull the clay up and around. So instead of just squishing, I'm going to pull that finger, the finger group over the thumb like this. And that allows me to pull the clay up in a tall direction. So again, that motion is pull up. So I'm going to start down here. Again, this is where it's thinnest. I've driven my thumb to the bottom, and now I'm going to use those fingers to pull that clay up and around. And you can kind of see, the finger marks that my fingers are making. And as well as the finger marks, you can kind of see the shape of the pot being defined by my pinches, okay? And I'm not totally thinning this out just yet. I'm just starting to move the clay up and along. Now that the basics of my pinch pot are done, you can see that there are still finger marks, and you can see that I've got a wide open vessel in the middle here. There's a couple decisions you need to make. Do you want a narrow rounded bottom, or would you like sort of a flattened, kind of a wider bottom? If you want that, at this point you can kind of push down into the corners and give yourself a little bit a wider base. Again, for this hanging pot, I was kind of going for a more narrow, kind of cupped bottom here. So to smooth this out, your kit came with a rib and a wooden tool. So I'm just going to take this rib and I'm going to start to apply a little bit of pressure and just smooth this out. Okay, so I've taken my rib and I've smoothed out a lot of the finger marks that are on the outside of the pot. And now I'm just going to kind of work the rim a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to support the walls and I'm just coming across that rim to smooth out some of that micro cracking that might be happening. Make my rim nice and rounded. Do any edge work. If we look at our model, this would have been a cute little planter just as is, without any texture, without any decoration. But it does add personality when you do add decoration and some texture. So I'm going to go ahead and, what do I have here? I've got a couple different texture tools. I'm going to go here. I've got my fork, I've got my wooden tool, I have my trusty paintbrush, and I've got the little texture piece that came with the kit. Other things that I have at my disposal for texture include a toothpick, a piece of mulch bark, and that's what I'll be working with today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hold my pot so that I'm supporting the wall with my hand on the inside, and I'll go ahead and get started here. So I think for this pot I'm going to do some lines down at the bottom. Okay. Now that I've got my preliminary line design done, I'll go ahead and, now notice, you might have some little crummies. It's too difficult to work with those when your clay is really wet. We can just brush those off later when the clay is drier. So we're gonna go ahead and just leave those right now. I'm gonna work on the rest of texturing my pot, and then at the end we'll talk about how to put the holes in the rim, okay? Okay, now that the texture is pretty much done, I might change a few things, but it's done right now. I'm going to talk about how to put the holes in the rim. So what I'd like to do is I would like to put 3 distinct holes in kind of a triangle formation. So what I'm going to do is I'll just kind of put my wooden rib here and just make the slightest of marks in the rim so I know where to put my holes. So I've got 3 equidistant holes here, right here. So now I know where to put my holes in my pot. In your kit, you may have received a wooden hole maker. Another way to make the holes is with your paintbrush. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. About a 1/4 inch down, maybe 3/8. I might just put my paintbrush through here. Now the key is to support the other side of the wall. You just don't want to like ram it because then your wall could bend with it. So I'm going to go ahead and then I'm rotating my paintbrush in a circular fashion. And I want to get to the thickest part. I'm making sure that this part does not hit the wall over here. And I'm kind of widening this. It's really important that you widen your hole to be about a 1/4 inch wide for a number of reasons. One, the thread can get through it, okay? But 2, your hole's going to shrink in the kiln. This is going to shrink in size. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that your hole is big enough after the shrink rate factor, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put the other 2 holes in, following my little micro marks here. Okay, my planter is pretty much done. I can work on just finessing a little bit, but in order for it to hold its shape right now, I'm actually going to have it dry upside down. And we're going to let it dry until the outside isn't so sticky, okay? So it's not going to be completely dry, like powdery bone dry, but we're gonna let this kind of get a little bit stiffer and drier so that we can apply any color that we want to apply to our pot. All right, thanks for watching, and your next video on how to apply color is on the tutorials page. Thanks so much.